I live in the United States. And in the United States, you would think the highest position of power is the presidency, you would think. But if you know anything about politics, especially about American politics, you would know that presidents are not much more than puppets. But presidents, they'll give a public speech or shake hands and do a press release, but when that press release is over, they're going to go meet with CEOs and boards of conglomerates and weapons manufacturers and the oil industry and the media industries and all of those multi-billion, trillion-dollar corporations that will sign the checks for their next campaign or let them know, hey, this is what you need to push and this is what you don't need to push. You would think it looks like the president is in power, but behind him is an entire economic engine. And that's actually in power. And if he messes with that economic engine, he's done with. He's done with. And this is a reality, I think nobody's naive here. Everybody knows this. There used to be a time where you would think, Muslims would think, power means military. Power means weapons. Power means planes, tanks, nuclear bombs. But actually, behind them is another kind of power. Behind them is an economic power. Behind them is a media power. Behind them is technological power. The definition of power changed. Presidents come and go, corporations stay. Wars come and go, and one party wins and the other party wins, but the corporation keeps making more and more money. Even in this current conflict, you can easily imagine that weapons manufacturers all over the West, Europe and the United States, their stocks are skyrocketing right now. They're skyrocketing right now. Who profits from this? Who gains more power? And the more power they gain, the more influence they gain. When Muslims don't understand their enemy, أَعِدُّوا لَهُمْ, because the enemy puts somebody in front of you that you think this is the real enemy. But behind them, there's an entire mechanism. If you don't understand that mechanism, you've prepared nothing. You've prepared nothing. We need to now, it's time that Muslims need to put their best foot forward. We have seen not one, but multiple disasters of the ummah every year, every other year. Some people here, sitting here, remember what happened in Bosnia, what was happening in India. Some people, these tragedies of the ummah, the bloodshed, the mass bloodshed of the ummah, and every time that happens, what do we say? We have to raise our voice. We have to raise our voice. We have to raise our voice. We've been saying this for 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, 80 years. Raise your voice, raise your voice. But something doesn't change. And then we say, no, Allah is not answering our du'as. We need to do something more drastic. Maybe we don't understand what Allah told us all along. You want to be able to be heard. You want to be able to be heard without even raising your voice? Learn to gather power. The enemy of Allah doesn't fear your voice. You know what they fear though? تُرْهِبُونَ بِهِ عَدُوَ اللَّهِ. When you start amassing power. When you become powerful. There are nations in the world today that have a military, but they don't intend on invading other nations. But they have a lot of interest in doing business with other nations. So they're opening up, they're buying ports, and they're making investments all over the world. And those same nations, after they make all these investments, sometimes they are oppressing their own population. You know what? Nobody will say anything. Not because we're afraid of their military. Because if anybody raises their voice and says, hey, you can't do that to those people, they'll say, okay, we'll just pull out our investments from your country and let your entire currency tank. And let your real estate market crash, and let your stock market crash. Let's see how you deal with that. So everybody just quietly lets them do whatever they want to do. You know why? Because they didn't need a military or fighter jets or weapons to have power. They used economic power as their engine, didn't they? And with that power, they don't have to even open their mouth